Hello and welcome to another episode of Three in a Pub. Unfortunately, one of our three, Paul, couldn't make it today for one reason or another.
I think he has been shopping for milkshakes.
Has he?
He's been in, I don't know, perhaps.
Well, he's in Newcastle,
And
someone else was in Newcastle today, which is Nigel Farage, and he got hit by a milkshake.
You're really milking this now.
I am. But let's talk about that in a minute. But first of all, I just want to say this episode's going to be about the EU elections. And I know we wanted to talk about Brexit a little bit less in these things, but it's kind of a bit pressing as it's on Thursday and the Brexit Party's doing really well. Oh. Now, already people are saying that this milkshaking that's been going on of various far-right figures, which has just happened to Farage today,
Woo.
is a bad thing because it discredits our cause. What's your take on that, Adam?
I think it's a good thing because I remember in the 1980s you used to get politicians, there was always a good egging in place, wasn't there? and then in the 90s, John Prescott, or was it the early 2000s, John Prescott got egged and then he punched the guy who threw the egg at him, so he was no longer known as Two Jags, it was Two Jabs.
Two Jabs, yeah, but do we really want to be descending to this level in our politics?
Well, no, we don't really, I suppose. But then again, too, it's a milkshake. It's not like they are threatening to rape politicians. Like
True.
So
someone said to me on Twitter this afternoon, two wrongs don't make a right. And I go, well, hang on. One wrong is the fact that Britain is going to break apart, that our pound is down by 15%, that a trillion pounds of assets have left the United Kingdom, which I'll come back to in a minute because I'm just obsessed with this figure. The fact that families have been torn apart, the fact that friendships have been destroyed, the fact that kids aren't talking to their parents and vice versa, all this animosity and negative feeling has blown up. One of our MPs was murdered by some nutter screaming Britain first. Right?
And that happened very close to my home turf.
Yeah, on the day that Nigel Farage did his infamous breaking point poster, which was full of Syrian refugees.
And it was based on a video, on a video that was shot by the Nazis in Germany, wasn't it?
I think it was a poster, wasn't it?
No, it was actually a film.
Was it? Was it Leni Rosen, whatever her name was, the Nazi filmmaker?
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing, and so on one side you've got that, and the other side you've got some millionaire fascist who has to go to the dry cleaners.
Oh dear.
See, that's the thing. I don't see that equating.
I don't.
This idea of false equivalency, is that the right word?
Yeah, equivalency.
Equivalency, false equivalence, let's say, it's been something that has just dogged our media and our political discussions for so long. It's kind of painful.
But when you consider how people like Farage behave, and I listened to, is it Tim Rice, who's the chairman of this Brexit Party, this morning on Radio 4.
Tim Rice, isn't he the guy who writes songs with Andrew Lloyd Webber?
Might be, actually, yeah. But there's someone, who's the chairman of the Brexit Party?
I have no idea. I thought it was just
Insert caption here later.
Nigel Farage, yeah.
But they were interviewing the chairman of the Brexit Party this morning, and he was combative right from the word go, although he never said the word go. But it was a combatant, he was aggressive, and I know the Today programme are famous for interrupting politicians and you want to listen to them, but he would just shout down what Nick Robinson was asking, and then again too when Farage was on the Marr show, and he's just dismissing what has been asked and what he was quoted as saying in the past, but they do it in such a combative way that where they're now leading, others are sadly following, and that's what I worry about.
One of the problems we've got there, going back to false equivalence, is that people will say, well, politicians are always like that. They never answer the question. So yeah, there's a way that you cannot answer the question, and the way that it's being addressed. Now, my problem is with a lot of the way that the media handle these guys is that they allow them on their shows to lie with basically impunity.
Yes, but the thing is, as well, is that they're never challenged about what they've said in the past. So, I mean, Michael Gove this year said on, I think it was on the Marr show again on a Sunday morning, that he finally admitted that no deal Brexit would result in higher food prices. And Andrew Marr's question to him was, well, you've sold us a pup then, haven't you? And that was it. He wasn't challenged.
Yeah.
And that's what I find...
Sold us a pup. All of our prices for food is going up. At a time when, 3.5 million packets of food have been given out this year so far with food bank. This is some ridiculous number. Sorry, don't take that number as read. Look it up for yourselves. I know that the fact that the number of food bank usage, the amount of food bank usage has gone through the roof.
Absolutely through the roof, and that's happened in the years since austerity.
So the last thing we need is more expensive food, but that's what Brexit promises.
But hang on.
More expensive food.
Hang on. If we're talking about Brexit, how come we need to talk about the EU elections? Because we're still in the EU. But if we're in the EU and we're taking part in these elections, isn't the EU meant to be undemocratic?
Well, this is the thing. In the UK, the civil servants come up with policy ideas and they present them to the government. The government basically presents them to Parliament and says, this is what we want to do. And then the arguing starts. In the EU, what you do is the EU Commission, which is the civil servants, do exactly the same job. They come up with policy, they give it to the European Parliament to discuss. But where the differences, and where the big differences, and why the EU Parliament is actually more democratic in more ways than our own Parliament in this country, is that it is a collaborative process. So it goes to the Parliament and then everyone discusses it. And by the end of that process, normally everyone's on board, instead of people just voting against it because it's not what their party stands for.
It wasn't in our manifesto.
Or it wasn't an idea that they came up with. And that really annoys me about British politics, where the Tories or Labour can come up with actually a fairly good policy. And instead of going, okay, well, let's make this into an even better policy, the other side, because of the opposition, would just blindly oppose it.
Yeah.
However, having said that...
On Brexit, they're not blindly
they've done exactly the opposite. They've just gone, oh, well, what's the point of opposing it? We want Brexit to happen. And I just want to
honour the result of the democratic choice of the British people, where the democracy in that was, I'm still waiting to see.
An election, a referendum where everyone cheated, where everyone overspent, and broke the law, and Vote EU broke the law. That's not democracy, that's a mockery of democracy. But I just fired off a tweet to Lord Andrew Adonis, who I've shared platforms with, I've shared stages with all over the country over the last couple of years, and he's a good guy.
Is he?
Yeah, but he's basically gaslighting people now on Twitter, telling them to vote for Labour, saying they're a Remain party. So, hello? Do you think we're idiots?
Well, maybe this is where people, and I can understand people were angry, Graham, about their lot in life. I mean, successive governments have sort of forgotten these regions. I mean, the region where I'm from, I'm supposedly one of these liberal elites who drink wine in wine bars in London. I've seen comments about us with that kind of thing. I'm not. I'm from a mining village.
I've never drank wine in these podcasts. It's always been beer.
But you know the comments we get.
European lager.
Oh, yes, we're on European lager today. I drove all the way to Durham. I've parked my car. I'm not drinking and driving. Don't drink and drive. But I've driven my Swedish car to drink Italian beer, wearing a Chinese jumper, because we have a trade deal with China.
You were doing well up until the Chinese jumper.
10 quid from Asda, Bonza. Anyway, but you've got these people who say. That we're part of this liberal elite or whatever, and quite obviously we're not. I mean, you're from Liverpool. Your father.
I'm fairly middle class, though. I mean, middle class. I went to a grammar school. I went to university.
I didn't go to university, but my father was an engineering officer in the Navy, and he got to be a chief engineer. So he was a self-made man. So
was my dad. My dad was a car mechanic.
Yeah, middle class sort of upbringing. Went to an okay school, but Lord Adonis is part of why people have got this thing against the liberal. He's considered part of the liberal elite, isn't he? He's considered part of the political elite.
Is he? But he.
Well, the idea is that the evidence is in the name, Lord Adonis.
Yeah, but that was a title that was given to him. He didn't inherit that.
Well, no,
he
of
actually
course.
had to fight his way up, from a pretty lowly birth. It wasn't like he went to private school like Nigel Farage, or had his parents pay for his prep school education. Like, Jeremy Corbyn.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Or who else had their parents pay for their education?
Boris Johnson.
Boris Johnson and Jeremy Kyle.
Jeremy Kyle?
Jeremy Kyle.
Hasn't he just been banned?
School, but yeah, it's like there's this, there is an elite. There is. We're not going to deny that, but we're not part of it. And we want to stop them riding roughshod over democracy and using people who come from lower classes to them as some kind of entertainment or bear bait or whatever. The way they look down on people from places like here in Durham in the northeast or in Liverpool.
I think it's safe to say that you're not a fan of Nigel Farage, and I think it's safe to say that
he's Oswald Mosley reborn.
He is, but I'm not a fan, but I can relate to some of the feelings that people have about why they vote for him. He's got the sound bites. He's got this cult following where he is. I mean, for goodness sake, people were paying him to go on a march from Sunderland to London.
Not many of them.
Yeah, but even so, I mean, that never happened.
Where's everyone come from in the last couple of weeks? Sorry, hang on. No one would come with this stupid march, right? And the big demonstration they had in London had a couple of thousand people, max.
And how many did we get?
And that was split between him and that Tommy Robinson, Tommy
Yaxley, Lennon,
Stephen
Robinson. The career criminal.
The career criminal. Who assaulted a police officer and went to jail for it.
And
British police officer.
And he was extradited from the USA for something as well.
Was he?
I think it was falsifying his passport.
I can't swear. I'm getting told off now for swearing in these.
I told him off.
Yeah.
I've told him off. If you're watching this and you're fed up of him swearing, I've told him as a foul mouth.
I just think that sometimes there's a time to swear, you know.
Well, I mean, it's all caused a big stink about the Liberal Democrats campaign, hasn't it, with their bollocks to Brexit.
I'm sorry, but that is the best thing that the Liberal Democrats have done for absolutely ages.
It's the most charismatic thing Vince Cable has done in his whole life, I think, isn't it?
I know, and this is what I was saying to the Lib Dems, because I was down there at the conference. We did a three blokes panel with
I didn't.
Vera. I know you didn't, but me and Jason did with Vera Hobhouse.
Oh yeah.
MP, and and the Lib Dems. I was saying to them, they've got to do something to shake things up and get people talking about them, and they have. So good on you.
But so people are drawn to people like Farage. I mean, people are drawn to people like Boris Johnson. I mean, a serial philanderer.
Paid for his at least one of his mistresses to have his abortion.
Yes. So that was new to me, but that was confirmed today, wasn't it? He's a serial philanderer. He has. He said, "Fuck business." This is whilst standing.
Right. I can't swear, but you can when quoting Boris Johnson.
I'm quoting Boris Johnson. We're quoting Vince Cable with his bollocks to Brexit that he copied off all of us, I think, didn't he? But anyway,
Is everyone else allowed to swear?
Do we get royalties from the Lib Dems for the bollocks to Brexit thing?
I should. I was there at Glastonbury in 2017 in front of Jeremy Corbyn in both the speeches he made on the main stage, and then he made a speech in a tent, and I had a huge yellow bollocks to Brexit flag, which I was very proud of. It's also, that's on one of the lists of, the list of best flags at Glastonbury, along with my 2013 corker, which was a flag that simply read, "God hates flags."
Right, that's like
this is what I did there.
Yes. This is like something like Fun with Flags with Sheldon Cooper, isn't it?
Anyway.
So there's getting back to this political elite. There's this political elite and people in Rotherham and
political. It's the media as well.
The media. I mean, the
media, the
Paul
politicians,
Dacre,
Jeremy Kyle, all of them.
The owners of the Telegraph, who also own the
Ritz.
The Ritz. So you've got this elite. Aaron Banks, corrupt diamond miner.
Yeah.
Probably implicated in blood diamonds, but anyway.
Yeah.
Sue me, Aaron.
In Soweto. Not Soweto. That's
Lesotho. Lesotho, that's it. Russian involvement suspected. Under investigation for electoral fraud. Under investigation for funding Farage.
So you can get £450,000 off a guy who's been suspected of electoral fraud. That's okay.
That's how I read it.
Okay.
We're in the wrong game.
True.
But so there is this elite, and people in places like Rotherham, and people in Sunderland and Liverpool, and I can understand why people feel left behind, because you look at the amount of money that they've spent on say Crossrail in London. That's 2 or 3 times the amount that they're even planning on the Northern Powerhouse.
It's more than they spend on the whole of the rail infrastructure of the north of the country.
Well, so that says it all, doesn't it?
It's just an insane amount of money, and London gets it. Of course, London gets it.
Yeah. So you've got to. So I sort of understand why people are sort of taken in. But people were taken in. Very clever people were taken in by a corporal from Bohemia in the 1920s, and very clever people. You're from Rotherham, you're from Doncaster, you're from Middlesbrough, you're from Sheffield, wherever. You're not stupid, but people are taken in by the sound bites from these people like Tommy Yaxley, Lennon Robinson, and Nigel Farage and things like that.
They're con men. They are straight out swindlers.
Complete.
If you watch The Real Hustle or Hustle or Ocean's 11 or whatever, where the grifters are the good guys.
Yeah.
That's not real. You have two people in when you're a con artist. You have your mark, don't you?
Yeah.
And you can either make money out of their greed, which we all seem to think is fair enough, or you can make money out of their desperation.
Yeah.
And this is what they've done. They've made a lot of money out of, and a lot of fame, and a lot of power out of people's desperation.
And yeah, I guess it appeals to our British entrenched sort of sense of Robin Hood. Take from the rich and give to the poor, only that's not what they're doing this time.
Well, obviously, but also what they've done, which is very clever, is now these con men have turned around and said to these people who were taken in by the con, the other side is saying you're stupid.
Yes, and nobody's actually said
Show
that.
them you're not stupid, because you haven't fallen for a con, and this isn't a con. It is a con, because £1 trillion of our assets, of British assets, have been shifted out of the United Kingdom. Now, I want to get across how much £1 trillion is,
yeah,
okay?
So I've been waiting for this.
£1 million in £50 notes comes to the height of about a human being, right?
I thought it was lower than that.
A billion, right, comes to the height of 2 Burj Khalifas, the highest building in the world. Imagine 2 of them stacked on top of each other. That's £1 billion
in what?
In £50 notes,
all right.
Stacked up, right? $1 trillion is 5 times higher than the International Space Station.
Blimey, that's a lot of money.
That's how much $1 trillion is. It's a quick word to say, but when you think about it for 5 seconds,
and
it's insane.
That's using £50 notes.
Yeah,
So.
and these assets have gone. And people are like, oh, they move assets around the world ever before. Never in the history of the world have so many assets left a country.
That's a staggering.
Apart from in times of war, and I don't even think it was that much in times of war.
No, it wasn't. And what they were moving then was more like it wasn't actually sort of assets in terms of electric money or printed money.
Yeah.
Things like gold, precious metals and things like that.
But those assets are gone, and
so
what else
is the
gone?
GDP of the UK?
The GDP is about 2.8 trillion.
So we've lost roughly 1/3 of the value of our GDP.
GDP and assets
no,
are
it's completely separate.
Separate things,
But
but yeah.
1/3 of the GDP in assets has been taken out.
To give you some example of how much money that is, the GDP of the entire planet is 80 trillion. So 1/80th of the GDP of the entire planet has left our country. I know GDP and assets are different, but those assets had not just jobs attached to them, financial jobs, service sector jobs, they also had taxes on the profits made. The more money you have, the more money you make.
Taxes, oh, that's a big B.
It was a big B.
That was a massive B, wasn't it?
Distracted. I'm making me a big speech, and you're like, oh, a dog with us.
It's been a long day.
But I mean, it's just so all that tax money is now no longer going to the exchequer.
Not a brass razoo.
Apparently, London has about 20 trillion in assets,
That's a huge amount of
movable
money.
assets that can be moved, and 1/20th of it has gone because of Brexit, and it's a mind-boggling sum of money that could.
How
in
much?
the right hands.
In the right hands. When we're talking about the cost, How much are the EU elections? Because we're here to talk about the EU elections, aren't we? So how much are the EU elections that people like Farage are grumbling about? How much is that costing to hold? Is it 120 million pounds?
That much? I don't know.
It was something like 120 million pounds.
That's a lot for a 35% turnout.
But we're losing more than that a week due to Brexit in terms of income, aren't we?
Oh yeah,
We're losing something like 600 million a week.
Everything's down. I mean, look, there's ways of looking at things where you can go, oh, look at the unemployment figures.
Oh.
They're the lowest they've been since the 70s. It's like, yeah, but
If you
they
work
don't
for
count.
1 hour.
Yeah, you work for 1 hour that you're employed. They don't include homeless people in those figures.
Because
and I'm
they
sorry,
can't get a residential
but
address.
Use your eyes, go out in your city and ask yourself, are there more homeless people now than there was 10 years ago?
There are.
No, I was shocked.
I was shocked when I moved back to this country how many homeless people I saw. I lived in Australia, I lived in New Zealand, I lived in Thailand. I've got to say, I was shocked. We're supposedly the 5th or the 6th biggest economy in the world, and I'm shocked at the amount of homeless people. I'm not just talking about rough parts of Rotherham or rough parts of Middlesbrough or whatever. I'm talking about flash parts of the country, you know.
Yeah.
I was just in London with my partner a couple of weekends ago, and she's from Colombia, and she was shocked by the amount of homeless people in London.
Yeah. I'm
You know?
shocked by it, and I've travelled a bit. But
Really?
when people talk about how the EU is going to fail, their usual go-to is look at the economy in Italy. Look at Greece.
Youth
Look at-
unemployment in Spain.
Look at Spain, yeah. Go to Spain, right? Get yourself an EasyJet flight over to Spain, 20 quid or whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just have a walk around and see how many homeless people you see in Spain. Not as many.
You don't seem
Not
to
as
see
many
as many.
as there are in Manchester, hanging around Piccadilly Gardens, or in Liverpool at the bombed out church, or in London under the arches. I'm sorry, but this is just.
These homeless people in London weren't even under the arches. I mean, the police. We went to Liverpool Street train station, my partner and I, and she was honestly shocked at some British police in the. I think Liverpool Street is in the City of London, because I think these were City of London police. You know, the square mile that is the City of London has their own police force, and she was shocked that these Rozzers were dragging this this poor individual who just sat outside the gates with a little pot with his change, and and she was.
Is he making them look bad?
Absolutely shocked by how we are treating people in this country.
British people.
British police are treating British people
in this country.
And
how come we're the 5th largest economy in the world doesn't hold any water when we say, well, okay then, can we give some money to the homeless? No, we can't do that. No, we've got to look after our own. They are our own. But
they don't count.
Yeah.
Because they smell. Or they don't have a house. And you cannot get universal credit, which is a shambles in itself.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't be talking about Brexit, because this shouldn't be happening. We should be talking about the state of our prisons. We should be talking about the state of our universal credit system now, because people are being deliberately driven into debt, into poverty, to make Ian Duncan Smith look good.
Yeah. And there's many people who are being deemed fit for work who are dying.
Dying or dead.
And we're talking about leaving the EU.
Which is a set of
for a few
trade.
years.
Yeah, for some trade benefit that even the people who are now saying, and this never came up. I mean,
it's coming up now.
But people are now
Brexit
saying.
Party woman yesterday.
She said
the day before,
30 years. 30
Check
years.
it out. Check out. There's a Google it. Have a look. It's our man Femi. And it's Maddie K, Madalena K, and they're
Big
up
up to
against,
Maddie and Femi.
What's the name of the woman? She's a Brexit Party woman, and they took her to task, like, how much? She says, at any cost, Brexit at any cost. I'm like, okay then, how many years? She said 30 years of pain.
Jacob,
30 years.
30, that would take you to 70.
It would take me to 70.
That would take me to 76.
Take most of the people who voted for Brexit to the grave. So we will be literally living in a necrocracy. Ruled over by the dead, the will of the dead from 2016. I spoke to a lady today in Newcastle. I was just up there. I didn't throw that that milkshake
Milkshake.
at Farage, but I was up there, and yeah, we were talking about Brexit. That happens quite a lot to me in the street, strangely enough. Yeah.
Have you been campaigning about this?
A little bit. And her attitude was, you know, I don't care about Scotland, I don't care about Ireland, I don't care how much it costs, I just want out.
Why?
I don't want to be a federal part of Europe. And I'm like, but I mean, I do, you know, when you think something but you can't say it because she's a little old lady, I felt like saying, for God's sake, love, you won't have to be, because you're going to be dead in a few years' time. So, it's the poor buggers who are just finishing school now, who are going to have 50 years of this crap.
Jacob Rees-Mogg said 50 years. This woman said 30 years. Yeah. So we're somewhere between 30 and 50 years. You know, I work in business, and if someone gave us an estimate of that width, we'd say, are you insane?
30-year plan?
Our 30 could be 50.
It's going to cost us money until 30 years.
Could be 10.
But this is the thing about us leaving the EU. We'll rejoin because it's going to be awful. We know it's going to be awful, and
we'll rejoin on less favoured terms.
Well, we will, yeah. But in the meantime, the idea that a lot of people have, and the 35% of the people who say they're going to vote in this European elections are going to vote for the Brexit Party.
Thankfully, UKIP
who are
doing very
pushing for no deal.
Now, can I ask something about this, right? Yeah. Because I was in the third and fourth of the three blokes when we went to Southampton.
Yes.
Right. In those videos.
Yeah.
Now, up until...
I think it was the fourth and the fifth.
It was the third and the fourth.
No, it wasn't.
All right, it was the fourth and the fifth, whatever it was.
I edited them. Well, I edit these things. I just sync up the sound.
Yeah. But if... I didn't understand any of this, right? Do you know how many European elections I've ever voted in?
None.
None. Not one. Not one. And... all I knew is that I just knew that 350 million quid on the side of a bus was a lie. I knew that even if it was true, the Tories wouldn't be giving it to the NHS. So I knew that was a lie. And I thought, well, you know, for my daughter, she's a dual national like me. She'll get to keep freedom of movement and all of the benefits that gives and all that kind of stuff.
Live, work, fun, love, retire. 27 of the most beautiful countries of the world.
Yeah. And so I voted to remain purely on a selfish basis, in effect. Right? Now, that's an admission, right? But then the more I looked into it, the more I then realised, hang on, we are being sold a pup here. And then speaking with you and Jason and all of these people, like, you get to realise that, hang on, there's so much more to this. Yeah. And I'm now determined to vote in the European elections. And I will be voting for a pro-Remain political party. Yeah. But I'm honestly staggered that people they're not interested in listening to reason on any of this. You know, I'm an engineer. I mean, what I do is I listen to logic and reason, and I read things, and I do calculations, and I make a judgment. Sometimes a judgment call, but we have best evidence.
Would you like a gold star on a jelly baby?
No, I'd like a kiss and a gold star. Anyway, but when I think, why don't people just do the basic research on what these people are selling you?
Well, because it was a crime of passion. It's an emotional response.
It's a faith. It's a faith
thing.
thing.
It's a religious thing. And I think a lot of people in the past were good because they wanted to get into heaven, not because they felt like doing good things or being good made them feel good. And now, because religion's fallen by the wayside and nothing really has replaced it, people want to feel good about something. So you've got an entire generation of people who feel good with the fact that they've saved Britain, and they think that they're heroes, and that
not all heroes wear capes, eh?
It'll be worth it, but they're not. They're cowards, because we're running away from our responsibilities as one of the founders of Western liberal democracy
and
the capitalist system of the world. We pretty much damn near invented it. And we invented the single market. So
and this is what Jason was saying, wasn't it? That he once said that in one of the videos that I think I was in with you, that it is a blow to the EU losing us, not just because of trade, but because of all of the talent that we've put in. Yeah, it's got to go.
Yeah,
you know, and people don't understand how much talent we have in this country.
The Brexit Party is talking about us having a no deal, which means that we leave the EU without a deal, and we say, oh well, we're not going to pay the 39 billion that we owe you, and we're going to put a border on the island of Ireland. Two upshots of that. One is, The EU is under no obligation to make a trade deal with us.
No.
And if we still owe them 39 billion, I guarantee the first thing they're going to say when they sit down and say, let's talk about a trade deal for 50% of your trade, right? We don't want it to be tariff, we want it to be tariff-free, which is always good. WTO means tariffs, right? The tariff on cars is 9.8%. The tariff on lamb is generally about 40 to 45%. The tariff on frozen beef carcasses is 160%. That's a WTO tariff. What's the WTO tariff on services? Adam? Services. The maximum tariff that a WTO member can put on another WTO member on services. On services. What's the maximum?
It's unlimited.
It is unlimited.
Because
and how much?
Services aren't included in WTO tariffs.
And so how much of our GDP is services?
Is it 80%?
80%. Well done, you've done your homework. I like this.
I'm going to get
it's
a gold
scripted
star.
Or anything. You are going to get a gold star. You're not going to get a kiss. I'll give you a jelly baby.
Okay.
So there you have it. That's how screwed we're going to be. So not only will the EU say no to the unless we pay them the 39 billion, they're not going to start discussions. The Americans under Trump will try and screw us. But maybe we can wait a year and maybe he'll get kicked out, the White House, and maybe the Democrats will take over, and that'll be better for us, right? Because because we'll have broken the Good Friday Agreement.
Not just
which
that.
The Americans helped to broker, and they will be pissed if we break the most important post-war peace treaty that we've signed.
Can I just pull you up on something that you said there?
Yes.
Not that you were incorrect, but you said 50% of our trade goes to the EU. 80% of our exports go to the EU and the countries outside the EU where we already have free trade agreements. So this is a huge amount of our exports. Now, Farage sits there and says, well, only 40% of our economy, or whatever figure he decides on that day, because he's quoted several different figures, but he says only 40% of our businesses or 30% of our businesses export. That's not the point. They import goods from the EU that our government will have to put a tariff on. When it comes to the 39 billion, is it 39 billion pounds or yo-yos? It's 39 billion pounds, isn't it?
Oh, that we owe them.
The divorce settlement that they're talking about. So it's 39 billion pounds.
That's our obligations. I mean, we signed up.
It is, but it is actually, when people are saying, "Oh, we'll not pay it," it's actually rubbish that they're spouting. It's bile, because if the UK doesn't pay that, the UK will have been seen to have defaulted on its international obligations. Our credit rating will go through the floor. Like, where's that happened before recently? Venezuela. It happened in Argentina before that. We're talking about freezes on capital. We're talking about freezes on money. We're talking about freezes on foreign exchange. You'll be struggling. Honestly, we will have to, as a country, in effect, go to the international version of Wonga for any loans. So people saying that will not pay it. They don't know.
Interest rates will have to go up.
Interest rates will go up. You'll not be able. Fuel will go through the roof. The price of fuel.
But you know what? If I had said before this all happened, £1 trillion will leave the United Kingdom for other EU countries. £1 million worth of assets will leave. And Barclays and other big banks will have to go to the High Court in order to transfer these vast sums of money. Barclays transferred, I think, £180 billion out of London and put it in Dublin. There's a start. That's just one bank. And, we have more than one bank. And if I had said that to someone, they would have gone, oh, that's Project Fear.
Project Fear. However...
But it's happened. It has happened, and we haven't even left yet.
But we've said that, manufacturing will be affected, agriculture will be affected, and people say it's Project Fear. And then the chief economist that Jacob Rees-Mogg quotes, which is a guy called Patrick Minford, says exactly the same thing. But that's not Project Fear. That's apparently acceptable.
That's the God's honest truth.
So...
Oh, no, hang on. But he's saying the same thing.
Exactly.
Well, that's a wind-down industry.
It's a wind-down industry and agriculture. He says it's well worth happening. So I'm at a loss. So all I know is that for the EU elections, I know who I'm voting for. And
who are you voting for?
I'm going to vote for the Liberal Democrats because they have a manifesto for general government as well. And as much as I admire the Greens and the Change UK group, or whatever they're called now, I think that they're really good, but I'd like to see I mean, I'm taking my right to vote a lot more serious now, because I want to see what they're going to present in the general election, and I've got a fair understanding of what the Liberal Democrats stand
bollocks
for.
to Brexit.
Bollocks to Brexit, but they've also got policies on health and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm yet to see something quite as satisfactory from Change UK and from the Greens. You know, they are very focused on the environment.
They need to swear more.
Yeah. I think we did have a good idea that we would take over the Liberal Democrat headquarters and steal all their tea once, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Radicalise them. Oh, don't kick the table.
I'll try not to kick the table. I'll not kick the bucket either.
Camera. It wasn't a small earthquake. It was just Adam kicking the table.
But
I'm going to be voting for Change UK.
I wonder why.
Well, I'm actually a member of the Lib Dems. I'm probably going to thrown out of the party for doing this.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm a member of the Lib Dems, and I'll bring this full circle in the end. So I used to be in Labour. For many years.
Me too, yeah.
After the Iraq War, which I was not very happy about, to say the least, I didn't vote for Labour in 2005 or 2010 for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
I did vote for them in 2015, and then the last election in 2017, I actually stood against my Labour MP, who's a guy called Stephen Twigg, who famously beat Michael Portillo in the 1997 election, if you're an election geek like myself. He is actually, you know, I know Stephen quite well. He's a good guy, but he voted with the Tories to activate Article 50.
Yes.
Whereas the other three MPs of the Liverpool region, Liverpool voted Remain, by the way, and my constituency, West Derby, voted Remain. They all voted against Article 50. Right, and being activated by the Tories. I don't understand why Labour had to vote with the Tories on this anyway. The Tories at the time had a majority. They don't anymore. But they had a majority in their own right, so they didn't really need to. Then they went into this election. I said to my MP, if you vote for Article 50, I will stand against you in the next election. Right, so that's what I did. I stood against him in the next election.
Did you get your deposit back?
No. I got more votes than Lord Buckethead, but it was just me on my own. I wasn't part of a party.
That's right.
I had no clue what I was doing, but I crowdfunded the £500 deposit. Thank you for everyone who helped me do that. And and
Lord
then
Buckethead.
I got more votes than Lord Buckethead. He's standing there apparently in the European elections. Anyway, so and then I had a dream in which Jeremy Corbyn came to me and told me to join the Liberal Democrats.
This is like that scene out of...
This is after I got a letter from Labour telling me I'd been kicked out of the party. It's really hard to get kicked out of Labour, you know.
Is it?
Yeah, if you say you're going to leave, they keep sending you messages and stuff. Even if you stop your payments, they keep sending you stuff.
Can you get kicked out for being anti-Semitic?
No.
No.
I think that's fine. No, sorry, God. Yes, you can.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
So let's not be absolute about that. I'm sure there have been some anti-Semites who have been chucked out the party.
Rightfully.
But, you know, when you look at how many complaints have been made, to how many people have been chucked out, come on, guys, come on.
So
anyway, let me get to the end of my...
Oh, I thought you had.
No, I'm rambling. I said I'll come full circle. I don't know how I'm going to do that. But anyway, so... I joined Lib Dems. Actually, before I did that, I went to the Labour Party conference in Brighton in 2017. It's September, I think, 2017, with my letter saying I've been kicked out the party and asked to get in with exactly the same rights and privileges, even though I wasn't a member of the party anymore, and they told me to fuck off.
I think they sent you away with a flea in your ear is the same.
It's like funny that it's like if you leave a party or a group
or a club
or a gym. Do you know what I mean? That's a very yappy dog. Don't worry, I'll take it out in the post.
What? Take the dog out?
Yeah.
You can't go around taking out other people's dogs.
I meant I'll take out the I won't.
Oh right, okay. So in the EU. Hang on, one thing I don't understand, because I've never voted in EU elections before.
Yeah.
But being an Australian citizen, I am legally obliged to attend to vote. You have to attend. You don't have to vote. You can deface your ballot, or you can write none of the above or whatever. But you have to.
Draw a big cock on the ballot paper.
Which
that's legal.
I have done that.
But not doing that is illegal. Well, I don't mean like.
Well, no, you don't even have to get the ballot paper. But you have to go and you get your name crossed off the list, or you get a big fine.
Yeah.
So, but I've never voted in European elections before, apart from I voted in the in-out referendum on Brexit, obviously. So, hang on. If the EU is so undemocratic, how come we've got EU elections? I've still not figured that out.
It's almost as though it is a lot more democratic than any other group of countries that work together as a trade bloc.
And
like ASEAN or like
the Africa
CABICOM
League
or like ECOWAS or any of the other groups that don't actually have an elected house where people representatives from all the different countries, based on the GDP and the population of the country, they all get a bit of a say in what goes on. It's usually one trade delegate, which is what we're going to go to when we go to WTO rules, because WTO is 164 members. We would just be one of those members, and we'll have a delegation turns up, and we'll have to fight our way through 163 other people who might not want us to do what we want to do.
You mean like the Russians?
Yeah.
And the Chinese?
Yeah. Anyway, so where was I? I was at the Labour Party conference. Anyway, joined the Lib Dems.
Oh, sorry, we're still on that circle.
Yeah. Just keep them interrupting. That's my job. And I stood as a Lib Dem councillor in Notty Ash in Liverpool last year, and I did it again this year as a paper candidate, which is a candidate that you're not expected to win. You don't really have to do anything, but they just want you down on the paper so that people can vote for you if they're a Liberal Democrat, so they don't turn up and go, I can't vote for any of these parties, which makes turning up a bit pointless.
Yeah.
So Liverpool's very strongly Labour, and my ward, Notty Ash.
Are you in a relation to Ken Dodd?
No.
Right.
But did he win? Did he L? That's what they said when I didn't win. But both times I came top of the losers.
Right.
Yeah, which is good. Anyway, so I wouldn't have minded standing as a Lib Dem MEP candidate, but I completely missed the application process thing going out. I don't know how. But then we saw the Change UK call for submissions, and it was a lot easier. It didn't involve you being a member for X many months or years or whatever, and anyone could do it. So I went for it. But also, my partner, Catherine, who has never been involved in politics ever before, she's a physics PhD, she went for it as well. And she got it. She got it. So my bird from Liverpool, Catherine, is actually one of the Change UK candidates for the northeast of England, which is
kind of cool.
I'm like brimming over with pride.
Well, I don't blame you for that, mate. And Catherine is actually a wonderful person, and
very easy on the eye. I'm not just saying that because I'm a fella, but
but then Anyway, but you don't vote for people on the basis of how they look.
I do.
Well,
I do.
I
That's
mean,
why I'm not voting for Anne Widdecombe.
How come Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson seem to get so many votes? But anyway,
horses for courses.
Yeah. But so that's you're voting for Change UK in these so-called undemocratic EU elections.
Let's talk a little bit.
EU undemocratic parliament.
I think anyone who's watched this video up to this point is going to be fairly on the lines that the EU is a democratic institution that we should stay part of.
Is it more democratic?
So what should we do? Should we vote Lib Dem, like Adam here, or should we vote for Change UK like me, or should we vote for the Greens, like my mate Zach, who was in the last video we did about the environment? Truth be told, my advice would be vote for one of those three that you like the sound of the most.
This brings me on to what I was just about to ask you, because...
They're on to us.
They'll never take me alive.
I've got my milkshake. You may take our milkshakes, but you'll never take
our freedom.
Anyway, go on.
Anyway, so this brings me on to a question that I was just about to ask about this undemocratic EU. Right. So
banging on about this.
I know, because it really makes my blood boil, right? But anyway,
I can tell.
People. If Farage is banging on about having 35% in the polls of people supporting Brexit,
and no deal Brexit, more importantly.
Well,
no deal Brexit. So if you vote for the Brexit party, this is on you. Whatever happens next is on you.
But they're voting for the Brexit party, so 35% of the electorate. But I understand that in the European Parliament is that they'll get a large proportion of seats because of, is it more like proportional representation, is it?
The way it works is that your top vote in any given region gets a seat. and then their vote gets halved. So if you got 30% of the vote, your vote then gets halved, and it goes down to 15%. And so there's another party that has 19%, they then get an MEP. And if there's another party that's got 17%, they then get an MEP. And there's one that gets 16%, they get an MEP. And then you get a second MEP when it gets back down to 15%, at which point your score, your percentage goes down again.
Right.
So it's actually pretty good that there's lots of different parties. It's not a big deal as it is in a general election where it is just winner takes all. It's
and that's first past the post.
It's more of a proportional representation system that's kind of done in a very strange, peculiar British way. But it also means that you can vote for the party that you want to vote for, and even if they don't come first, they'll still get to send perhaps one MEP
we're not too worried.
Strasbourg or Brussels.
We're not too worried about splitting the vote on the Remain side.
Not as concerned as some people are, especially the Lib Dems. They're freaking out. You're splitting the vote. You're splitting the vote. But we've seen that actually the Lib Dems are taking votes from Labour.
Yeah.
They're not having their votes taken off them by the Greens or by Change.
They're getting votes off the Conservatives as well, aren't they?
Here's the point. If you are dead against the Lib Dems, possibly because of tuition fees or because of the teaming up with the Tories, which, admittedly is fair enough. I can understand why people are upset about it. If you've left Labour because you're upset about them teaming up with the Tories to deliver Brexit, and don't forget, on the record, Labour have admitted that they're trying to help the Tories out.
Yes.
I don't think that's why anyone in this country voted for Labour, to help the Tories out. That wasn't on a manifesto, mate.
It's staggering, isn't it?
Vote for me and I will help the Tories out. Yeah,
right on, brother.
Revolution, Reg.
Yeah.
Solidarity.
What has you ever done for us?
But yeah, so we've got this situation where you can vote for who you want in this election, because what we're going to do once this election's over is what the news organisations are going to do and what the politicians are going to do is they're going to add up the scores on the doors, and they are going to be Change UK, Lib Dems, Greens, added together. There'll be a percentage there, and they'll say they're the people who want to stay in the EU. They're the people who want to revoke Article 50. Then you're going to have the Brexit party and the UKIP vote. That'll be put together. They're the people who want to leave no deal. And then you're going to have what's left of the Labour and Conservative vote, and that's going to be just party loyalists and people who don't really care about Brexit, because there are, believe it or not, there are people who don't really care about Brexit.
Yeah, there are. There are plenty.
Which is fair enough, because people have got their lives to be getting on with and things to do, and it's just politics taking over people's lives, especially someone, I studied politics.
Yeah.
So I've always had a little, I've always had a bit of ink in the well. Is that the right expression? I've always had
I think so, yeah.
A toe in the game. I'm mixing my metaphors here, but basically, I've always kept abreast of the political situation in the UK and around the world in different countries. But to bring other people into my world, I feel it's a bit cruel, because politics is really, really boring. It's like stamp collecting. It's like insisting that everyone get into stamp collecting. I'm like, I don't want to get into stamp collecting. It's boring. No, you will collect those stamps and you will bloody enjoy it.
But the problem is with Brexit is it is now really derailing the country in as much as we cannot deal with the pressing issues. There's an article recently, it may have even been today, and it was certainly mentioned by James O'Brien on LBC, that the Dutch cannot extradite a person to the UK under the European arrest warrant because our prison that is supposedly going to be sent to, it doesn't meet human habitation standards. It's against people's human rights to keep them in there. Now, I'm not one of these people who say, prisoners should be given, soft, fluffy, cuddly toys and bean bags. And
do you know why you're not one of those people? Because they don't exist.
Exactly. But
I know people who work in the prison service. I know judges. I know barristers and lawyers.
Yeah.
And nobody thinks that criminals should be given fluffy toys and PlayStations. Everyone thinks they should be punished and stopped
and rehabilitated
and not given their freedom for a bit and rehabilitated
and brought back into society and be given opportunities to work and earn and pay tax and national insurance. But people then turn around and say, well, hanging's too good for them or whatever, But I mean, the fact that the Dutch will not even send this criminal back is a damning indictment of what this country has gone to. Since 2010, we've got, I think, out of all the new recruits in the prison service, they have 1,000 leave every year out of all of them. And they employ. They only expect to keep 200 or
the
something.
The only other business that is comparable to that is the Department for Leaving the EU.
Just staggering, isn't it? And we're spending all this money on this, and I just think
the environment, mate. We are in the grips of a climate catastrophe. We are in an absolute crisis. We've got 10 years before the shit hits the fan. And people are like, oh, we've got 10 years to worry about. No, we need to do something about it now, because if we leave it to the last minute, it'll be too late. It's just that in 10 years' time, that's it. It's irreversible, and we are going to be...
10 years, right? I mean, in 10 years' time, what gets me about time is the less time you've got, the faster it seems to go. That's one of the cruel ironies of life. I've been back in the UK now for 4.5 years, and it's gone like that. It's gone like that. And I think...
That's because of all the drugs you take.
Careful. I don't take...
I'm on speed! I'm on speed! Off my head! I'm off my head, Jackie! I'm off my head!
I'm not some kind of raging alcoholic or drug abuser. Anyway, but...
Another lost weekend, Wilkinson.
But anyway, I mean, time passes that quickly, doesn't it? I mean, it literally goes that quick. And people we're worrying about... putting up traffic cones on, another one of Chris Grayling's sterling efforts. He couldn't even organise a traffic jam. But anyway, we're doing practices for no-deal Brexit, and he couldn't organise a traffic jam. He wanted 150 trucks to turn up, and 80 turned up, at a cost of 500 quid per truck.
What about the 50 million that we spent on ferry services for no deal that weren't necessary?
Well,
the 50 million that was spent, 40-odd million of which was public money spent on an invisible bridge in London by the guy
Boris
who's
Johnson.
Going to be our next Prime Minister.
Yeah,
Good one, dickheads.
Yeah, but 30 million.
He's funny. He makes me laugh.
£30 million on a ferry company with no ferries. £30 million to bail out a company that was suing him, and they reckon that P&O are now going to sue as well because we want a slice of this action. I'm going to sue him. I mean, I don't know the first thing about a ship.
Everyone just super failing grailing.
Failing grailing.
Yeah.
I mean, what do these people have to do to lose their jobs?
Oh, they are the height of incompetence. They really are. And in any other profession, any other walk of life, they would be out on their ear. Even though it's a lot harder to sack people than it was, which upsets people who are idiots because they think that it should be just, human resources. That's what they call it, don't they? Human resources, because we're just a resource. We're not individuals with hopes and dreams and aspirations. No, we're just a resource, like coal
and steel.
And steel. British Steel has gone.
Well, it hasn't gone yet. But again, their order book has dried up due to Brexit uncertainty.
Nissan are going.
JLR
have moved production.
Nissan aren't going yet, are they? It's Honda who are going.
Honda's going to Swindon. No, but isn't Nissan have said they're not going to make their next generation car in?
They're not going to make one of the cars. Yes, the new Qashqai, I think it's called, or Quishquash, or whatever it is.
And isn't it an X-Trail? Oh no, that's Honda, isn't it?
Might be a car.
Whoever makes the X-Trail, that's not going to happen in the UK.
Yes, Nissan have said that one of their cars isn't going to be made in the UK.
Airbus have said they're going to go in the case of a no-deal Brexit.
No deal.
Scotland said it's going to go in the case of a no-deal Brexit. And we've already lost £1 trillion. Did I mention the £1 trillion
You mentioned that, and it reaches...
The stack of £50 notes, that reaches 5 times higher than the International Space Station. Have I mentioned that? Did I mention that money's already gone?
I couldn't take the pay cut.
This isn't Project Fear. You can look this up in the Financial Times. You can look it up in Reuters. You can look it up and actually go to the High Court in London, because every one of these financial institutions has taken out this huge amounts of money. We're talking millions or billions of pounds out of the country in assets. They had to apply to the High Court in order to do that. It's all a matter of public record.
Yeah, and it's staggering.
Go on, ask them. Ask people when they talk about how great Brexit's going to be. Say, how do you intend to get that £1 trillion of assets back? What's the plan?
They haven't got they don't know, do they? They only believe. They just believe in Brexit, and that's like people like that Andre, what's his name, who you've had a run-in with, and I've phoned him up.
We're going to trade with the rest of the world.
Who have nothing.
Well, come on, be fair. outside of Europe, there are 8 countries that are seen as having advanced economies by the IMF.
Yeah, so Australia, Canada, New Zealand,
Singapore,
South Korea,
Japan,
Israel,
and
United States.
yeah,
Yeah, so that's 8. So
that's it.
And
that's it in the whole world. We are going to become the Venezuela of Europe. That's what Brexit is. It is the
Well,
Venezuelaization
that's certainly what no deal is.
of the United Kingdom.
But then we talk about compromise, right? And everyone is now agreeing that leaving the EU is not going to be beneficial, apart from
Yes.
head cases like Farage.
No, but even the Leavers are saying it's not going to be beneficial.
Right.
But we've got to, because we said we would.
But if you and I were to compromise, do you think? I mean, what would we go for? The Norway deal?
Yeah. I would have gone for. I wouldn't have gone for it, but I would have reluctantly gone along with having a situation like Norway or like Switzerland, which was touted by
Nigel Farage.
By Nigel Farage. He said, "Yeah, let's do that," but we're not, because we've got to stop freedom of movement. We've got to not we don't want to pay any money in. We've got these red lines, and it was us that came up with the red lines.
Yeah.
And the EU, to their credit, went, "Okay, well, you can do all this stuff, the crazy shit that you want to do. That's fine, but Northern Ireland is very, 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 very important that we don't put a border there, because people will die screaming."
And then the DUP, who don't want to compromise, say, well, we want to be treated the same as the rest of the UK, so no border down the Irish
Well, that's
Sea.
what the backstop is. The backstop would allow the Northern Ireland to stay in
a customs union.
Stay in the customs union with the EU, and also be part of the UK. Best of both worlds, like being a ladyboy. But instead, they've gone, "Oh no, we're not going to. We don't want different rules from the
I can't
United
believe
Kingdom."
you just said that.
It's true, though, isn't it? They get the best parts of both of the deals,
yeah.
because anything that comes in and out of Northern Ireland will not be party to the treaty, to the tariffs that the UK is going to have to pay on everything in the UK, and everything going out of the UK as well. And this is the big important thing.
Yeah, and
all our customers around the world are going to have to pay more for the services and the goods that we sell them, unless it's a book, because the tariff on books is 0. So unless you're an author, like myself, Man of the World, Graham Hughes, very good book. It was actually one of the Kirkus books of the year.
Did you
critically acclaimed author?
Did you release the second one yet?
No, I want to write. It's called Top of the World. It's on my to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
I've got all the chapters all set out, and I've got all the notes and everything. It just needs basically writing and editing now.
Right. Okay.
And well, not even writing. It needs editing. But I'm trying to stop Brexit first.
Well,
I'm trying to help stop Brexit.
Help stop Brexit.
Yeah, I'm not that arrogant that I think I can do it alone.
So
I need me friends.
That's nice. Right, it's Monday.
It is Monday.
It's the 20th of May.
It is. I had to check my watch, but it is the 20th of May.
Chris Grayling is still employed.
He's still failing.
He's still failing.
Failing upwards. Falling upwards.
Nigel Farage has been covered in either milkshake or bukkake, I can't remember which, in Newcastle, and has also got angry.
Mate, you've just lost half the audience.
Well, you were on about ladyboys. So anyway, but he's also upset with Gordon Brown, because Gordon Brown has said he needs investigating as a matter of urgency about where his money's coming from.
Gordon Brown?
Gordon Brown, the former PM, has written to the electoral... The Electoral Commission, is it?
But this is the thing, they're riding roughshod over democracy.
Yes.
And they know they can cheat now and get away with it, because the referendum showed that you can cheat in a British democracy and get away with it. And people will back you up. Labour will back you up and go, yeah,
I've been determined to say this, the fraud-orendum, as he normally says.
Fraud-orendum. Yeah, and Labour backed it up and said, we have to respect this fraudulent referendum.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's given a free ride to all the fascists, all the Nazis, all the yahoos. And there was a guy in Newcastle today when I was helping out Catherine with the Change UK, giving out pamphlets and stuff, and he was screaming at the top of his voice, like a swivel-eyed lunatic, basically screaming that leaving the EU was going to be the greatest thing ever, really aggressive, in your face, just like horrible. And I was just thinking, anyone walking past who voted Leave is thinking, he's on my team. That's one of ours. God, I'm so proud.
It's
I'm made up.
we're living
look
in
at that crazy guy screaming at me.
we're living in frightening times, aren't we? Really. So.
A policeman was having a word later at the train station. So I
What
don't-
with him?
Yeah, I don't know, something related probably. I think he was a bit of a nutter. But then all the nutters are on that side. The people who are racist, the people who are fascist, the people who have got lots of money and going to make loads of money out of Brexit.
It was quite good seeing that Will.
And on their side, they're not on ours.
It was good seeing Will Young get challenged by the thinking man's idiot Mark Francois, who because Will Young said all racists voted for Brexit.
Will Self, mate, not Will Young. He was.
Will Young was someone else.
He won the talent show and
a talent show.
Yeah. He won like Pop Stars or X Factor or something like that.
All right. Will Self.
Will Self, thank you, the author.
The
He's
author.
got a really annoying voice.
Has he?
Yeah.
All right. But he said all racists voted for Brexit, which Mark Francois said, we're not all racist. And he said, well, I'm not, and he just couldn't get his head around it. He wasn't saying all Brexit voters were racists.
Well, it's
he
the
never
same thing
said
like
that.
you calling me stupid.
I'd never say that.
Do you know the only people who are calling people who voted Leave stupid are the people who told them to vote Leave?
I've never heard anyone on our side say that they're stupid.
No, I think they've been misled. I think they've been conned, and it's horrible to admit you've been conned. It drives you mad. I remember many years ago, I was in Spain, and some guy started cleaning my shoes, and I felt really bad. I was like, I don't want you to clean my shoes, so I told him to go away. But he said, oh no, but I cleaned your shoes a little bit, and I was like, I've got no change. I had to give him €5. And it still annoys me to this day because I was conned out of that bloody money by some charlatan with a bloody, and he made my shoes more dirty. It's horrible being conned.
This is one of.
Admit it.
I'll never go back to the Vatican because I had a coffee cup stolen there.
Mother. Right. So anyway, on Thursday, please vote.
Right.
Okay, that's the most important thing. Please vote, because only 35% of the electorate bothers to vote in EU elections. But this one is critical because it is a proxy referendum.
Yeah.
There's no other way of putting it. And hopefully we will, as the Remain parties, that is the Lib Dems, the Greens, and Change UK, will get more of a percentage of the vote together
than UKIP and
the Brexit
Farage.
Party. Yeah.
And so. And in closing, we are looking at EU elections this Thursday.
Yeah.
Next week, the Maybot is bringing back her withdrawal agreement bill
for a fourth time. Because they get to vote again and again and again. They can change their mind. You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to change your mind.
And
you're bound by the decision that we made 3 years ago.
And she is bringing that back. And not only are they allowed to change their mind, they're allowed to change the rules because the 1922 committee voted to keep her in December for another year. And they said, well, we don't like that now, so we're going to change the rules.
Yeah. So they changed the rules, got to change their minds.
So where's the democracy?
Because the facts change, and when the facts change, so should your opinions. So as far as I can see.
So as far as I can see, the EU election is more democratic than the British government.
But we are rapidly heading towards Boris Johnson being our Prime Minister. And do you know what? For me, that is all the fault of one man, Jeremy Corbyn.
Yes.
If in January, when the withdrawal agreement was first brought before Parliament, if he had stood up and said, we want the people to have a say in this, whether they want it or not, we will pass it, because enough Labour MPs and Tory MPs would be enough to pass it if it comes with a referendum. And then we could have gone hell for leather in order to win that referendum for Remain. But he didn't allow that. And now we're going to get Boris Johnson as our Prime Minister.
And that is terrifying, isn't it?
So
terrifying.
Anyway.
Right, so we are in Old Tom's Gin Bar.
Old Tom's Gin Bar in Durham.
Durham. The fair Rachel served us.
Yeah.
Was it Rachel?
Yeah, it was Rachel.
Rachel.
She's got tattoos and stuff. She's rock.
We've had Italian beer. I've parked my Swedish car. And I'm using my Chinese-built, American-marketed iPhone. But I guess we're going to sign off at some point, aren't we?
Yeah, that's it. We've come to the hour mark, so I bet we better say goodbye. But yeah, just thanks to the guys here at Old Tom's. They're always really good here because they turn the music off. One of the problems we have when we go into pubs is if they've got recorded music, we can get into trouble if it's in the background of us talking. So we can go and tell them to put the music back on now.
Thankfully, they turned it off because it was the Beatles.
Yeah. But before we go, please, let me reiterate, please vote on Thursday. If you have a vote, please use it and and vote for a Remain
Remain
party.
party.
Don't vote for Labour. Don't vote for the Conservatives.
Even if you're a lifelong Labour voter.
Yeah, just for this once, please, just
vote.
put your name down to say, I want this to stop. Because we may have run out of time for another referendum. We might be just heading into the territory where we just have to revoke Article 50.
And then that's going to unleash a whole lot of demons.
Yeah, maybe we could have a referendum whether to redo it. Whether to re-establish it. No, we need to have. The people need to have a say.
The people
we
do
need to have a say. Either way, whether they revoke Article 50 and then we have a decision on whether to do it again. Mm-hmm. Yeah, at least now we'll know what we're up against.
Yep.
Yeah, and what kind of deal we're going to get. Or we quickly have a referendum before October the 31st, and we decide to stay.
Halloween.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Right.
And then we can get our lives back.
And I'm going to go and buy a next book. And I'm going to go and buy a milkshake and go to Newcastle on the train.
Brilliant. All right, thanks, Adam.
Cheers, mate.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Right.
See you later.
Next time.